All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 41 of Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries. I am Josh Cannon, and this is my diligent, steadfast co-host, Mike. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing good. Gonna go to a job fair at a local Goodwill tomorrow, see what happens.
Oh, boy, are they gonna have a Ferris wheel?
No, it's not that kind of fair, Josh.
Oh. That's always funny, though, that they call it a fair, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is kind of strange.
Job carnival.
What I'm going to try to do is beforehand. I'm going to try to get up earlier, which is crazy for me.
Yeah, me too.
But so I can get out there a bit earlier, because then maybe I can drop by the local pawn shop around the same area and see if I can find some, movies and stuff. They have some great deals. Like, their DVDs are like $1 each. So it's insane. And with the job fair, I don't really know exactly how it's going to go. Don't have that much experience with it. I'm just going to dress up fairly nice, head out there. Hopefully it doesn't, the weather is nice tomorrow. That would be really appreciated. And, I guess just see what happens. Give my resume. I don't know how things go there, to be perfectly honest. We'll see. We shall see.
How close are you to getting your license and being able to drive? Because I'm telling you, man, that'll up your game.
I'm not to that point yet, though.
That'll up your job finding game immensely if you're able to drive around. And
Yeah, I know. But
weren't we supposed to have hoverboards by now, according to Back to the Future?
Yeah, actually 2 years ago, 2015.
Damn it. You've been hovering around the fucking city.
Actually, a year ago, I think, 2016.
That was so annoying when the Back to the Future, like all the memes that before the actual day came, all those stupid memes saying, today was the day that they went to in the future and Back to the Future, and they had the meme and then someone photoshopped like that date.
2015, yeah.
And then finally the real day came up. It's like, thank God no one can post those stupid memes anymore.
I like the Back to the Future Day, though, thing they did, where you could see all three films in the theater. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. And then they reissued those oddly shaped Pepsi bottles that were in the future.
Only to, like, the people at, like, a Comic-Con.
Yeah, and then scalpers.
Dressed up as Marty or somebody from the film. And they sold some online, but scalpers bought them all.
Yeah, and then like price gouged everybody. But yeah, I've been doing, I guess, okay. No weddings or anything super crazy lately. I just finished a vlog, which is a big deal for me. Mike, not for Mike so much. He puts out videos like 4 a day, but for me, it's a big deal because I've had
not 4 a day.
Well, that's
a bit much. I don't do 4 movies.
That's not that off. That's not that off. Every time I see my YouTube, it's always got like 4 or 5 little videos that you've put out that I haven't watched yet or whatever. But yeah,
but that doesn't mean a day.
Yeah, well, whatever. I put out a vlog about why I hate country music. So if you want to check that out, you can go to youtube.com/dancingwithghosts. Mike's YouTube channel is youtube.com/OCP we have a Facebook group and a Facebook fan page. It's it's facebook.com/uncovering unexplained mysteries. And then you can use that same name to join the private group, which has turned into a shit show, I must say. Well, maybe not a shit show, but a shit display. I don't know. We have over 600, almost 600 people in the group now. The group was started a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point.
Yeah. And
I'm thinking like 80% of the people in there don't even know that that there's a podcast, and that's why that page exists.
I mean, regardless, I don't really care. I mean, that's groups for you.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they like Unsolved Mysteries and they just decide to join the group, or they like Unexplained stuff, whatever. I mean, whatever floats their boat. I mean, I'm not gonna. Maybe that'll open the door for more people to listen to the podcast. And, so I don't see this as a shit show, so to speak. I see it as something that is interesting, as an interesting development.
Yeah, I just viewed it as a utopia for all of our 20 people who are really engaged enough to actually
It still kind of technically is. I mean, look at most of the posts and comments. Look what most of them are from. They're from people who listen to the show.
Yeah,
they're not from a lot. There's some newcomers who are like, "Thank you for letting us in," but they don't really seem to provide much discussion.
Yeah, but anyway, we also have a Patreon page that you can.
But that's up to them anyway.
You can support us on. It's patreon.com/uncovering unexplained mysteries. I just revamped the tiers, the reward tiers. So the lower amounts you get more than what you used to get, and then the higher amounts you also get more than what you used to get, including a live chat, which we're going to be doing soon. So if you want to have a live chat with me and Mike occasionally, where we're all on Skype and we can all see each other and stuff, I don't know why you would want that, but if you do, that's the $20 tier. So yeah, go check that out. So this week was a markedly different week in the Unsolved Mysteries world than most weeks, because Reddit actually did a Ask Me Anything, aka an AMA. Oh, that was kind of funny, 2 abbreviations there in a row. AKA AMA. It's basically where celebrities will go on Reddit and the users can ask them anything. Although, given the privacy and clandestine nature of John Cosgrove and Terry Moore, I'm guessing the whole anything part was very narrow as far as what
it was subjective. Ask. It was very subjective, and it definitely wasn't one of those ask me anything type things.
Now,
but that's kind of how it is mostly with these AMAs anyway. It's like ask me anything because AMA is catchy, and we don't want to call it a Q&A because we think that's blasé. Well, but
I gotta say,
not really necessarily true, because I looked at a transcript and there were a lot of ones that just didn't answer.
Yeah, I gotta say that I dropped the ball on this one, folks, and I apologize. I really do. I was supposed to get on the AMA. There's a few different things that were going against me. You're apparently, like most other discussion or forums or whatever, the people who have more points or more kudos or karma or whatever you want to call it are the people who generally get their questions answered more, because they don't want Johnny come latelys all up in there. They want the veterans, who.
But that's honestly, I think that's pretty shitty.
It is shitty.
It's pretty lame.
It's stupid
because it's an ask me anything. So I really don't get that at all.
Well, just because you've been on Reddit a long time doesn't necessarily mean you're a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries. What if you got a big fan who hears about this, like, oh, I really want to ask some questions. Oh, too bad, kid, you're not a regular Reddit user. So,
Yeah, I mean, that is really lame.
So I had that going against me. I overslept. I got on there at like 4 o'clock, probably long after it was done. I don't know how long they did it for. But when I did try to log in, Reddit kept giving me this 404 error, meaning the site crashed or there's an error loading or whatever. They wouldn't let me get on. I tried logging in, and they to quote Mike Morse, I just let the phone ring, and it never went to the answering machine. I don't know why it didn't go to the answering machine, so I just let it ring. That's what I did proverbially with the logging in. It just never went to where it would let me log in, so I just kept trying. But yeah, anyway, I mean, sorry guys. I would have loved to have, really asked them some. I wasn't gonna be a dick about it. In all honesty, I like for entertainment's sake being like, oh yeah, I was gonna go in there and really rip them a new one. But no, I would have been like, can you tell me why you guys are so protective with your copyrights and how you don't really allow people any kind of fair use of your stuff? What because fan communities and this, that, and the other thrive when companies give them a little bit of leeway to use their stuff, whether, in the realms of fair use, whether it be review, critique, commentary, or educational purposes, not just straight up ripping off the streams and making money. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about fan communities like, say, Nintendo, if someone does a Let's Play and uses footage from their game. Now they've started cracking down on it, but usually video game companies especially are very lax about that because they know that, hey, all these people are being a walking commercial for our product. There's, even if they're dissing it, if it's a big enough YouTuber, people are still going to go out and want to check it out, even if it's really bad. And the guys in Unsolved Mysteries, they just don't get that. So they just strike everything down in general for a show that I really don't think is going to be brought back. And I don't know if I would want it to be brought back. Anyway, we have the...
just to add a little bit more to that. First off, Nintendo is notorious for blocking and content IDing and doing all kinds of shit on YouTube and fucking people over on YouTube with Let's Plays. Even big YouTubers like Angry Joe and so on.
Now they are.
So,
yeah, they didn't used to.
No, they've actually been doing it for a while, to be perfectly honest. Like, definitely for a few years. So that's nothing new. And Nintendo is not necessarily the best example. But I read from some people who looked over the Reddit, and they were like, they asked some similar questions about why the footage, why the clips were taken off of YouTube and things like that.
Oh, really?
And they answered the same sort of, copyright, type thing. And one of the people who was on the Reddit, they said it seemed like they were coached by their lawyers on what to say and how to answer certain questions.
Yeah, good point. Good point. That is how they come off. I remember someone commented on our group or whatever, and they were quoting somebody else, and the person who commented was saying, I have my own project that I've been working on, and, about Unsolved Mysteries, and thank you for this, that, and the other. And then John and Terry spawned back going, oh, no problem, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end they go, what's the name of your project, by the way? Or what project are you working on? And I just knew right then and there, I knew exactly what was going to happen. If that guy had answered them, they would have looked into this project, whether it was a YouTube channel or whatever, and they would have looked for any kind of infringement on their copyright, and they would have sent this person either an email. They always start off with an email, and if they didn't comply, they'd send a letter. I knew that's, and it's like, man,
or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they're lax more. They're more lax now since they're getting this newfound publicity because the show is on Amazon Prime. And FilmRise technically does have the distribution rights now. I mean, if you think about it, I don't think they nearly have as much control as they used to when it comes to the full distribution rights, at least streaming rights of the show. I mean, look, it was on YouTube, the Dennis Farina episodes. It's still on YouTube.
Yeah. And then there's another thing on YouTube.
And like your video on your channel, FilmRise is the one that claimed it, and you were able to contact them and get everything worked out. So I still don't think you're going to see people posting entire clips and stuff. That's still not allowed, and I can understand why.
I wouldn't want that. I mean, I understand why that would be harmful.
But for review purposes, I don't see the problem.
So let's just go through. Let's just go through these real quick. It's called.
This is from Mental Floss. This is a bunch of answers that they collected from the AMA. They thought were interesting. We're going to go down the line as usual. Go back and forth. So you start with the first one.
So the first one is this is called 12 Things We Learned About Unsolved Mysteries from the creators of the Reddit's Ask Me Anything, John and Terry. Number 1, the creators knew what they were looking for in an unsolved mystery story. Maureen Cosgrove wrote that they were looking for, quote, a good mix of stories, murders, missing, wanted, paranormal, etc., end quote, when deciding to put on the show. Beyond that mix, they wanted mysteries that had more than one suspect or theory. Finally, they wrote, quote, we focused on stories we thought the show might be able to solve, end quote. Wow,
that's such an interesting... amazing question.
Yeah, very insightful. I mean, I could have never guessed that from watching the show myself, The
second question is, this one actually is something a bit new. I really had never heard that this was the case before. Number 2, they used a newspaper clipping service to find stories. Though the stories featured on the show came from a variety of sources, We had viewers who sent in cases, law enforcement who would contact with us with cases, and we had a team of researchers constantly looking as well. The duo said that they also used a newspaper clipping service with some grim keywords. When we were producing the show, the internet didn't exist yet, so we had a newspaper clipping service that would send us articles from around the country, keying off the words like murder, missing, UFO, ghost, etc.
Man, that is old school. That is very old school. That's crazy. Number 3, the call center featured in the show was real. I always pretty much figured that, but someone actually asked that question on our group one time, and this confirms it. Unsolved Mysteries filmed host Robert Stack in locations all over Los Angeles, including Griffith Park and Hollywood Dam, and the Hollywood Dam. Some shots also featured Stack walking through a call center. That was a real call center with real people! Exclamation point. That was a real call center with real people! Moyer and Cosgrove revealed.
Maybe... I'm just imagining that was always a question they'd always get asked, and they're just irritated now by this point. You know, because people have asked them that for so many times, and they're just like, enough. They've had enough of this shit, and they're all like, that was a real call center with real people! Damn it, I'm sick and tired of answering this question.
All right, so what's the next one?
Number 4, a few cases never made it on the air because the show's researchers solved them. Sometimes when our researchers would start investigating a story, they would solve the case themselves, especially a lost love type story. So those cases were abandoned before they aired.
Good. No, we have enough lost love cases on there. I like a lost love every now and then, like I like a, I don't know, fucking...
A root beer float?
Yeah, there you go. Every now and then I might want a root beer float, but definitely not very often. Number 5, they were duped by hoaxsters once. Moore and Cosgrove wrote, quote, our researchers did a great job vetting stories to weed out the ones that seemed suspicious. But that didn't mean their process was foolproof. At least one fake story made it past them. Quote, we did a UFO story in which 30 people did drawings that looked like the same UFO, and it was a very convincing argument they made, end quote. Moore and Cosgrove revealed. Months later, we found out that one of the key proponents had made a model of the UFO and photographed it against a highway. All these people were fooled by it, and so were we. So that, and we were thinking that was the Gulf Breeze UFO, right?
That's definitely what it is. It's the Gulf Breeze UFO segment. One of, if not the first ever UFO segment that was featured on the show. It was from season 1, and it aired, I think, once, and hasn't really aired again. I don't know why. I honestly, from what I've seen from this recording I found that looks like it was recorded with a fucking potato. The quality is so bad.
So that makes
does
sense.
Seem like a really interesting segment that I would love to see in better quality, because it's really hard to watch this segment and really get an actual opinion on it because it's so blurry and pixelated, and the picture quality is so terrible. So it would be nice to see a better quality version of it. And if it's one of those things where they're just ashamed, why? I mean, you did the Gold Woman thing where you revealed that she was full of shit, that it was a hoax.
I think when it comes to UFOs,
you could do the same
if
thing.
It was a hoax, then honestly, I wouldn't be interested in seeing it. And now that makes sense.
For this one, though, it actually, from what I flipped through with this segment, I think you would be interested in seeing it, because I actually try to recreate it and everything and try to show how this person might have faked it and all of that. And I think that's really fascinating. It's really interesting.
Yeah, see, I don't care if women that I'm with fake orgasms. I only care if people fake UFO sightings. What? You faked it? The whole time there was no ship and the pictures aren't real? You bastard, get out of my house. Oh, by the way, Josh, I faked all those UFO sightings. You bitch! Anyway, let's move on here.
The next question is one that is just absolutely insane. Someone sent their mother's lung to the producers.
Jesus Christ.
When one Redditor asked for any funny stories or what the fuck moments while working on the show, Moore and Cosgrove came back with a whopper. Someone sent their mother's lung to us in the mail. He believed his mother had been murdered, and he wanted us to send the lung out for testing. On the lighter side, one of our directors is absolutely convinced that they were being haunted during the filming of one of the stories.
Well, yeah, we kind of already...
I don't know how that's really the lighter side. Oh, on the lighter side of things, one of our directors was convinced he was being haunted. Now, if this is a regular guy, he probably would not really benefit from making up a story of being haunted on the set. So that might have actually happened, and he was terrified. Yeah, it's such a light side of the story. Man, that's so funny. Oh my God! I think this set. I think that it really is haunted. I swear to God, I'm feeling cold spots. I think something's poking me. I think something might have scratched me earlier. Oh, whatever. That's so funny.
I think they were just being cheeky in that moment, honestly.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to question number 7 here. A fugitive from one of the cases was on set for filming. When asked about, quote, the creepiest thing that ever happened to you over the course of filming a segment, end quote, Moore and Cosgrove responded with a story that will send chills down your spine. There was a case where the wanted fugitive was on the set while we were filming the reenactment, and no one knew initially. No one on the crew had seen his photograph yet. That's fucking weird.
Yeah,
it's the 90s for you, man. That kind of stuff happened.
I think didn't our DP that we interviewed, the DP that we interviewed, didn't he have a similar sort of story, kind of like that?
I don't remember, but he definitely was talking about kind of paranormal kind of things that had happened to him.
See, well, he was talking about the whole thing about the guy. He was shooting a segment, and it was about like a murder segment, and he thought the killer was there. And I think later it might have been the same guy who actually did it. But anyway, the next question is: sometimes law enforcement asks them to omit details from the segments.
I mean, this is really honestly no fucking surprise whatsoever.
Exactly.
I didn't even need to that question didn't even need to be asked. But anyway,
no. Featuring active investigations on the show sometimes meant that Moore and Cosgrove couldn't reveal everything that they knew. Law enforcement would often ask us to hold back clues in a case that they could use to help identify suspects' innocence or guilt. And sometimes in interviews, Moore and Cosgrove could tell who was lying. We can't name names, but there were often prime suspects that we interviewed whose interview was in direct contradiction with what the witnesses and law enforcement were saying. In many cases, the people we interviewed were later convicted.
We got one of those stories on the podcast today, as a matter of fact. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no shit. Of course that they would do that. Any show that deals with this would do that. Like, for instance, that old fart that frauded out all the old ladies in Florida. During the segment, they withheld the detail that this guy also practiced magic. He was a magician. And that was a detail that only law enforcement knew. So when the caller called in, he mentioned something about, oh yeah, this guy does magic or whatever, and that's how they knew that the guy was legit. They do that. That's a very basic investigative tool that's utilized. Number 9, selling the show to Spike TV meant making some stylistic changes. Ooh, this gets into the Farina shit. My interest is piqued. Moore and Cosgrove rebooted Unsolved Mysteries with host Dennis Farina in 2008. Don't remind me. The pair explained that because Spike appealed to a younger male audience, the network requested a version of the show that might better suit their audience. There was an effort made to try to update the show with more contemporary elements. That meant new music and high-tech elements like shots of Google Earth. Quote, "We were glad to have the opportunity to update the show," end quote, they wrote. It was sad that Bob had died, but we felt that Dennis would be a good choice. He was a wonderful man to work with. See, this is typical John and Terry just being very vanilla and diplomatic, and they're playing the whole Hollywood game where they can't go right out and say it was shit, we didn't like it, but we had to do it because we were trying to get the show back on the air. I mean, making the changes, good luck. If you're able to see any of the Dennis Farina Unsolved revamps, I mean, it's awful. The music, and it's funny they say you have to appeal to a younger male audience. Which is true. I did a whole video about that, and I hit the nail on the head on all these points before any of this ever came up. I mean, you had fucking rock guitar in the background, it was like jin 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 and jin 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 jin, you know, and like the stupid graphics that they put on the screen that were unneeded, and they just dumbed it down. Because I guess they think
music stings.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and, you know, music stings in and of themselves aren't a horrible thing, but God, how they used them were so corny. I guess they just assumed that the intelligence of young males is just very low. So, but then again, Spike TV was just
I think it was a mistake
anyway.
at the time that they put it on Spike at that particular part of Spike's history. That was early in Spike's lifespan. And Spike was known for shows like Mansers and all that kind of stuff. Oh, my
God. I forgot about that.
And, you know, it was just one of those... It was just weird to see Unsolved Mysteries on that. And like, oh, a younger male audience. Really? Did that audience even exist to begin with? I mean, I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries, but I didn't want to see it like specifically tailored toward, you know, my teenage... Well, actually, you know, I had better taste than that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean...
when I was a teenager.
And then they said, about Dennis Farina, they said he was a wonderful man to work with. Okay, that's like saying Josh was a good employee. He always showed up to work on time. You know, like they're not actually saying anything specifically good about what he did. They just said, yeah, he was good to work with.
I mean, that was nice, though. I mean, that was nice of them. And I would not be surprised if they legitimately do feel that the show was good. I would not be surprised at all.
There's no way that this is, you know, this show is obviously very near and dear to them. There's no way they think that was good. There's just no way.
I don't know. I don't know them personally.
Anyway, number 10.
They became close with the people featured on the show. It might seem strange that family members would participate in TV segments about crimes involving their loved ones, but Moyer and Cosgrove pointed out that when family members participated, it was a cathartic experience for them, and they felt good about doing something active to help solve the case. That was reason enough. We got to know the people very well when we did their cases, and we became attached to them. The duo reached out to those featured on the show to update their cases, but that's not where the contact ends. Contract.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
I still get a Christmas card from a woman in England who had given up her baby for adoption, and Unsolved Mysteries helped reunite her with her daughter. Well, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, I think that's, you know, that shows that maybe they have a heart. I'm just kidding. It's become a meme at this point for me to take the piss out of these people, so I just can't stop now.
Why do you have to be so heartless?
Number 11, for legal reasons, some segments have been removed from the seasons that are streaming. Oh, this is something we've already tapped on here previously. We have a legal staff that keeps track of the cases to make sure that we do not infringe on anyone's rights, Moyer and Cosgrove explained. Sometimes a statute of limitations on a case has passed. We always try to be respectful as we can to the people who are featured in the segments.
Okay, there's a certain... I understand that to a certain point to when it comes to this kind of thing. But there are exceptions, like the Underground Tunnel Robbers segment. That was on Amazon Prime. The statute of limitations has expired on that case. There's been other cases where the statute of limitations has expired that have been on Amazon Prime.
I don't get what difference it makes if the statute of limitations is expired. Like, why can't they still air it?
I think there might be some legal thing, maybe, but I think the main thing why certain cases are not on Amazon Prime is legal reasons, not just related to statute of limitations expiring. It's the people who were featured in the segment. They sued John and Terry or Unsolved Mysteries, and there are certain segments actually that will never air again because of that. So, but for some reason they do not want to talk about that. They don't want to be honest and say, well, this is another reason why some people weren't happy with how they were portrayed in the show, or they didn't want their cases. They didn't want, like, one of the first ever Lost Love segments was this man who had, apparently, I think he had the kid out of wedlock, And at that time, that was really a bad thing. And that was something that would really hurt his image. And he didn't like that. So he basically sued, and that segment really hasn't aired since the first broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're dealing with people's lives and potential slander and libel and, whatever, I guess
some of it, though, is people who I think are guilty of sin, but somehow got away with everything and just don't want the show to keep streaming episodes and segments that really make people remember about the case.
And then lastly, they're actively trying to get Unsolved Mysteries back on the air. Oh, buddy. We are in the process of reaching out to networks to see if there is interest in ordering new shows, Warren Cosgrove wrote. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Rob Lowe is getting his own show with his son, trying to solve Unsolved Mysteries. And there's all these different networks and stuff for it. But that's that's also one of the biggest issues with getting the show back on the air. Like, what makes it unique anymore?
Right.
I mean, with all the stuff that's on Investigation Discovery and all these other channels, what really is going to make Unsolved Mysteries unique again? Now, a show like Sightings, I think you could bring back, and it could still be fairly unique.
All right, guys. Here's the portion of the podcast where you take your shot where Mike mentions Sightings. Yeah, I don't know. It's if they brought it back, it would be Unsolved Mysteries in name only, because all the intangibles I talked about why I love the show personally, the music, the nostalgic feel, the 90s aesthetic,
the host,
all that would be gone, because there's no way that if they brought it back proper, I think the only way they could pull it off is to do it exclusively on either YouTube or Amazon, somewhere where they have a lot more creative control. Now, after reading all this stuff, I think the more interesting answers I got about the show came from the actual people on the show that I was able to talk to on this podcast, like Don Devereaux. Don Devereaux was telling me some very interesting stuff about how when they moved to CBS, how they want to skew to a younger audience, so the cases that they started taking were specifically from younger victims, and the perpetrators were younger, and they stopped, taking on, having older people on the show, and they want to make it more hip. They didn't go as far as to do what Spike TV did, but there was a lot of interesting insight that Don Devereaux, you guys should really go back and listen to that one. I think it was episode, 20 something or 19 or something, and then you should also go and listen to the interview we did with Kevin O'Brien, the director of photography. Those are two people from the actual show that are on this podcast, so I think that holds a little bit more water, like what we got from them, than what you would have gotten from this AMA. Yeah, there was some interesting little tidbits, but, they got to be all Hollywood about everything. They got to be very, cloak and dagger about all the answers that they give out, and they got to be careful. So,
I also heard from a fan, they did some research. They found out that the CBS version of Unsolved Mysteries was actually doing really well ratings-wise, but it was still canceled, which is really interesting.
That happened.
I wonder why that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. So that was that. I mean, whatever that means to anybody, that was the Ask Me Anything.
I mean, there might have been other questions that were interesting, but the Mental Floss article did not pick them out. So maybe we might find a transcript later, and if there's anything extra from the AMA, we might share that with you guys.
I just don't think it would be a whole lot of new information, personally. I just think...
Well, kind of like that interview that I covered on the bonus segment. A bonus bit on the podcast on our Patreon. The interview with John Cosgrove. It was a lot of I kind of already knew all this already.
All right, so
which is disappointing, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's whatever. I'm tired of talking about John Cosgrove. Still have bitter feelings. Anyway, let's get into our first case here. This is a case of Monika Rizzo, which started out. So I got an extra little bonus thing I tagged on here because I actually have this. This was on the Ultimate Collection box set. This was under the Bizarre Murders. So this was one of the few segments that actually had an audio commentary from director Mike Mathis and John Cosgrove himself. So I have some notes tagged at the end because I went back and I listened to the commentary as well and wrote down some things they had to say. This actually started out as a missing persons case originally on Unsolved Mysteries, but has since been changed to a homicide. When it originally aired, it was missing persons because they didn't know what happened to this woman. On June 5th, 1997, San Antonio, Texas, a guy calls a police detective and tells him that Leonard Rizzo murdered his wife, Monika Rizzo. But it's a reenactment, but how the guy does the reenactment, how the caller is talking, he's so just blasé and just nonchalant about how he's delivering the line. He's like, Leonard Rizzo murdered his wife, Monika Rizzo. You can find her bones in the backyard. And then he just hangs up the phone. It sounded like a gruesome prank, but the police in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, butthead.
No, that wasn't butthead. That was a more laid back. If it was butthead, it'd be like Leonard Rizzo murdered his wife, Monika Rizzo. It's pretty cool. You can find her bones in the backyard. Yeah, totally. Shut up, Beavis. Sounded like a gruesome prank, but the police in San Antonio, Texas wasted no time checking it out. They wanted to question Leonard Rizzo, but that would have to wait, because at that very moment that they arrived, Leonard Rizzo was having a seizure. They expected drug overdose, but later they learned that he had been having those types of seizures lately. Police questioned Leonard's adult son, who was upstairs at the time, that Leonard was having a seizure. They asked him if he had seen his mother recently, to which he had replied he had not. Then they asked if they could search the house, in which the son gave them permission. Because I'm guessing the son isn't thinking that his mom's dead, so he's like, yeah, go search the house. And I certainly don't think my dad did it. Police found Monika's clothes and her car parked in the driveway. Nothing seemed to be missing except Monika. Next, the backyard. Police did find bones, but they seemed to belong to some kind of animal. The caller appeared to be wrong. There was no sign of a body, no evidence of a murder. Where was Monika Rizzo? The mystery began for her co-workers 1 month earlier on May 5th, 1997. That day, Monika left her office appearing to go to lunch. She didn't even take her purse, however. After 8 days of repeated phone calls, her boss finally reached Monika at home. She told her boss that she had not been feeling well and that she'd be out of work until the 19th. But the 19th came and went. Monika never returned to work. Now, I don't know what kind of job Monika Rizzo had to where she could just leave work for 2 weeks and the boss would just be cool with it. But if I left my old job at CVS and just called the manager and was like, yeah, I'm not coming in for the next 2 weeks, the manager would be like, oh, no problem, you're fired.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, Leonard Rizzo claims a few days later he woke up one day and she was gone. He never reported it to the police. Quoting Leonard here.
Okay, that's extremely suspicious right from the beginning. Oh, your wife goes missing and you don't report it to the police? I mean, I understand. Yeah, okay. It's one of those things where, okay, it's been a day. All right, but you haven't heard anything from her.
I mean, that's just
not a phone call, not anything, no contact.
That just goes to show you that there must have been some kind of a problem in their relationship to where if she just leaves, he's like, fine, fuck it. I don't care. But according to Leonard Rizzo, he says, well, I was really confused. It made no sense. My wife and I were very close. There's no reason to believe that she'd be going away and she wouldn't come back, so I chose to wait. So Leonard Rizzo is kind of a combo between Mike Morris and some other greasy motherfucker. I can only do so many voices, people. So it goes back to the reenactment again, and the phone rings, and he goes, is this the San Antonio police? Which is kind of dumb, because it's you just called them the number, dumbass. How do you not know that? So he goes on to say, I reported that Monika Rizzo had been murdered a few weeks ago. You need to go back and search their house again. Leonard Rizzo killed his wife. The bones are in the backyard. They're under a pile of tires by the fence. They're under those tires. So this time they did find bones. They even found a bag full of what appeared to be human flesh. Gross! Leonard Rizzo had some explaining to do. Now it goes back to Leonard.
Lucy, you have some explaining to do.
Leonard, you have some explaining to do. So Leonard goes, the bones they found in my backyard are an absolute mystery to me. As big of a mystery as my wife's disappearance. To me, there's no question that someone is trying to draw attention from themselves and do this to me. So inside the house, police found potential evidence of a violent struggle. Several patterns of bashed and blood-spattered drywall were all over the place. And it goes back to Leonard's response, saying, basically, I got very upset and decided to beat up the house a little. The house won. I got the worst end of it.
Bullshit.
God. Was he listening to fucking Papa Roach at the time? Cut my life into pieces. Just like fucking wall. I don't know. That was way before that album came out. Anyway, detectives also learned that Monika's co-workers had been so worried about her that they had an officer come out and check on her. The officer had reason to be concerned. When Monika answered the door, she had bruising on her face, but told the officer that she was okay and that her husband was sick and needed to be taken care of, and she then closed the door. And then back to old fucknuts here. There was no domestic abuse. Me and my wife are deeply in love. We've been married 26, going on 27 years. That's a long time for me to kill. I'm just joking. That's not what he said. 2 weeks after the second anonymous call, the DNA test came back from the bones in the backyard. As expected, the results were human, but they were not those of Monika Rizzo. Now we've got Monika Rizzo missing, bones of an un-ID'd human being, so police probed a little deeper. They brought in archaeologists from the University of Texas to excavate, whatever the fuck. Anytime they would find a bone fragment, they would put an orange pin flag down. Before they were done, the yard was dotted with dozens of pin flags. Dr. Robert J. Hard, archaeologist from the University of Texas, took part in this excavation and explained, when you find the bone at an old archaeological site, the bone is very dry. This bone that we found in the backyard still had a greasy feel to it. So we knew it had not been there very long, but at the same time, it had been there for a week or a couple of weeks, as there was no soft tissue attached to the bone fragments. There were bones everywhere, even in the barbecue grill. The archaeologists sifted through the ashes and found more bones, all from human hands. And this is one of the most brutal Robert Stack lines of Unsolved Mysteries. No one is sure how many hands. Like, the archaeologists, I'm just going to read that line again. The archaeologists sifted through the ashes and found more bones, all from human hands. No one is sure how many hands. Over 8 days, the Dr. Hard and his team collected over 200 bone fragments. The bone fragments had been cut into 3-inch pieces or less. Quote, from Dr. Hard here, we felt it was some kind of machine, some kind of chipper shredder has been discussed. It's the only machine we could come up with that could account for this type of breaking. You wouldn't get it with a saw, a knife, a lawnmower. We can't think of anything else that could cut the bone like this. Once again, police had questions for Leonard Rizzo. I've never even operated a wood chipper. I've never even rented anything in a rental store. Maybe a car dolly or trailer. No, I did not operate a wood chipper. Never have. Liar! First of all, you've rented shit from stores. I mean...
Oh yeah. I mean, but also... I don't even necessarily know if it was a wood chipper. It sounds more like something from a garbage disposal.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Way it sounded like the way that things are broken and cut up.
But then how would you I mean, it would be a real bitch trying to collect all those bones.
Yeah, see, so that's what's crazy about this. It's like, not only is it insane that there's one, pile of bones in his backyard, there's all these other different bones in his backyard. And then you're like, how the hell did these bones get there? And then his theory of, I didn't do anything. I have nothing to do with it. It's a mystery to me how these bones got in my backyard. Bullshit. It's your backyard. What am I supposed to believe, that some random serial killer is choosing your backyard to dispose of his victims?
Right, and like how long did they live in this house? And they're saying the bones still had a greasy feel to them, so it's not like you can blame it on the fact that they were there before I moved in. It's like, nope, sorry, little too much grease on them bones.
Then the whole thing where they're in the grill? Like, what is, what?
You living at fucking Hannibal Lecter's crib or some shit? Like, just chilling with him before he moved in there or something? Are
you friends with Leatherface?
Jeez. So, new DNA tests indicated that the bone fragments found by archaeologists were also human. But there was another surprise. The bone fragments from the backyard belonged to at least 3 different people. Also surprisingly, Monika Rizzo was not one of them. Monika is still viewed as a missing person. Police don't know who the people are or how they ended up in Leonard's backyard. I did not kill those people whose bones were found in my backyard. Those bone fragments and such, I don't know where they came from, and I admittedly did not kill them. Additional DNA tests did conclude that some of the bone fragments were that of Monika Rizzo and 4 other people. That was kind of the footnote to the whole thing, and that caps the episode. But then what we have...
There's a little bit of an update, though.
Yeah.
The case is still technically unresolved, but the remains were later identified to all be Monika's, but there have been no arrests in this case. Subsequently, in May of 1999, Leonard was charged with an unrelated assault and drug possession charges after recently abusing his current girlfriend. Authorities believe that Leonard was responsible for Monika's death, but still do not have enough evidence to file charges. He went to prison for 2 years for that. I think he might be out.
Yeah, so I have additional notes from the commentary on this from John Cosgrove and Mike Mathis. They're just saying the commentary starts off and they're both saying this is one of the most gruesome stories. This is a box set of bizarre murders, because this was on the box set. And this has to be one of the top 5 most bizarre murders, John was saying. The suspect in the murder case allows himself to be interviewed, and we ask ourselves the question, do we believe him? Because that's not common for the suspect to allow himself to be interviewed. Mike Mathis was saying there was a lot of back and forth with his attorney before we did the interview, before they finally let us do it. And it was done in his house, and you could see the house had been torn apart. They had cut holes all in the wall, which made it tricky to find a place to even film him. Did his attorney stay in the room? John asked Mike. Mike said, oh yeah, he was very concerned with the questions being asked. They had changed the DNA results since the segment and identified all of the bones in the backyard as Monika, according to John Cosgrove. That's probably where they got this extra info. This started out as a missing persons case on the show originally. Now it's a homicide. And then they're saying how Leonard started accusing his girlfriend that he got with after Monika. He started accusing her of having sex with Monika, and that she knew what happened to Monika. And they were doing amphetamines, and then that's when he assaulted her. The cops were called. Leonard ended up getting shot in the gut. For that whole incident, he's serving an 11-year sentence. The family is struggling to get closure and are convinced that Leonard was the guy and that the bones were sent back to him instead of the family. And then they learned that he was already in prison on another assault charge, which is what I just mentioned. But he was allowed to go to the funeral, according to John Cosgrove here. And he went to the funeral in his orange jumpsuit right there with the parents.
Wow.
And you really feel for the parents in that situation. And it's unique to find a suspect in a case who would sit down and do an interview. You don't know if it was a sign of innocence or hubris, but it's chilling because you're sitting down talking to this person who's been accused of this crime. So that was the extra notes I had on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you think about it, I mean, I honestly think he's guilty. I mean, the evidence is right there. She was abused. Monika was abused. There were parts in the segment where a friend of hers was talking about how she saw her with a black eye. Cops were called, and she said, you know, the sort of thing that you see a lot in these kind of abuse cases, sadly. Oh, it was nothing. I just accidentally gave myself a black eye. And the officer's like, are you sure? Are you all right? And yeah, I'm okay. And that's it. It's just how everything, I mean, the bones are in the backyard. How would you not know that there are bones in your backyard? I mean, if it's not one of those cases that they were there before he moved in.
I mean, okay, the
yard... And the whole stuff with the blood on the walls, his excuse was so far-fetched and bullshit that it automatically made me question him from the moment he said it.
The yard I can understand, but the barbecue grill is what really set it off for me, because it's like, come on now. You had to have used that damn barbecue grill.
The yard set it off for me too. It's behind some tires. Like, really? And they're all piled up in a pile behind some tires in your backyard? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's all pretty shitty, but the barbecue was just blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's like right by the house. You know he used it. You got to change out the coals whenever you're going to grill again, and you're telling me you didn't see those fucking... But then again, you got to argue, well, would he be that dumb to keep that in plain sight and allow... I mean, there's a reason why...
And that's the thing. He's not that smart, and it's crazy to me how he's gotten away with it, because there's just evidence strewn all over his backyard.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think in our opinion it's pretty obvious that he was a perpetrator of this.
I mean, who else has a motive? I mean, who else is there? I mean, maybe... I don't believe that it's some mysterious killer who killed his wife and then buried her in his backyard. I think that is extremely absurd.
Well, I think in police investigation, I think the line is the most obvious choice is usually the right one, or something like that, something along those lines. But yeah, well, that's this case. Let's move on to the hidden treasures case here. Yes, sir, Bob. We got us some. So this is the treasure from the Old West back in the 1800 days. And, we don't have the fancy Unsolved Mysteries music, but I can just do some makeshift slide guitar here, just setting the tone. Is this doing anything for anybody? Do you feel like you're in the Old West yet? Kind of sounds Hawaiian, doesn't it? Sounds like SpongeBob shit. Okay, yeah, that failed miserably. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Anyway, this segment was called Plummer's Booty. Plummer's Booty. On the Ultimate Collection under the, I believe it's on the Treasures.
It's on the bonus disc, yeah.
Yeah. I like this one. Thought this was interesting. The corruption that went on back in those days. The 1800s must have been an interesting time to be alive. I wouldn't like to be in that time for very long, but I'd like to spend, a few days in that time period with all the gold fever and all that kind of stuff. So let's just get to it. Our next story is about some legendary treasure, buried, we believe, in the hills of Montana. 154 years ago, a crooked sheriff and his cohorts went to the gallows, refusing to let go of their secret of where they kept their booty. To this day, the tantalizing thought of buried gold still attracts prospectors. It all began in 1863, in what proved to be the bloodiest time in Montana history. And probably the most interesting time in Montana history, because I don't really think much is going on in Montana since then. Just offended a whole state. If you're from Montana, let us know. And you can tell me fuck you in the group if you want to. The Montana Territory, 26 years before Montana would be admitted to the Union, when gold was discovered in an area known as Alder Gulch. Hundreds of prospectors showed up, each trying to claim his share of the spoils. The Spurs? The basketball team? Anyway, historian, this guy's got a great name. Historian Dick Pace. My name's Dick Pace, and I like my hot sauce hot. Hotter than a pig's asshole. Anyway, anything, Mike? You alive over there?
I don't have anything to offer. I'm just letting you. You're
just sitting back in your fucking chair over there. So
yeah, I'm just letting him finish his sentences and stuff.
Historian Dick Pace said, "News of gold back in those days spread fast and spread wide. Riches were being made and people wanted to get in on them. That's why there was such a large gang of outlaws around every camp. Spring of 1863, the prospectors were nearly wiped out by a brazen group of outlaws known as the Road Agent Gang. The road agents reportedly stole more than 1,000 pounds of gold, coins, and nuggets. The road agents were secretly led by a man named Henry Plummer, who amazingly had another identity as sheriff of the gold boom town of Bannock, Montana. The people had no idea he had just been released from prison 4 years previously from a newly constructed prison, San Quentin. Henry Plummer was a very pleasant-looking individual." Now, wait a second. Why are you commenting on the guy's looks? I don't understand that. Dick Pace might be into guys. Henry Plummer was a
his name is Dick.
That's true.
Maybe he likes Dick.
He likes to pace himself for all the dick that he hopes to someday get. Now that was lowbrow. I normally enjoy this podcast, and then the host has to say something dirty like that. Anyway, Henry Plummer was a very pleasant-looking man. He was the only man in Bannock, practically, that always tipped his hat to a lady when he saw her on the street. He was a consummate con man, so he was able to con people into him being the sheriff. And of course, he knew that him being the sheriff would give him a perfect cover for whatever he wanted to do in the illegal line. Plummer's targets of choice were miners trying to transport their gold to a major railhead. These are some great reenactments here. This is on season 2 on Amazon Prime, so you can go and watch this for yourself. I think it's episode 11 or so. But yeah, great reenactments. The horses, the old period style guns, the clothes. It was great. I mean, this just showed you the broad scale of the show at that time. During a 4-month period in 1863, it is estimated that the road agents and Henry Plummer stole more than 120, or actually killed more than 120 miners, and at the same time stealing gold that would today be worth more than $6 million. Now, of course, this segment aired in the 90s, so today, as in 2017, probably worth more around the lines of $8 million, I would say, just rough estimate. The townspeople had no idea that their chief law enforcement officer was the ringleader of the road agents. For 6 months, his identity remained hidden. That was until December of 1863, an incident in Bannock put a crack in Plummer's delicate facade. A well-liked 19-year-old was brutally murdered by the road agents, and his body was horsed into town where everyone could see. That was enough for the townspeople. They formed a vigilante group and rounded up the road agents one by one, dispensing rough justice and makeshift trials. Finally, a man by the name of Red Yeager, apprehended by the vigilantes, dropped a bombshell naming Henry Plummer as the gang's ringleader. Yeager's the one that spilled the beans, but of course, when a man's facing a noose, he has second thoughts about a lot of things. According to one account, he said, "Looks like you're gonna hang me, boys. But if you do, I know a lot of others that deserve it just as much as I do. Henry Plummer is the one you want. He's the one behind all of this." And it was that first firm indication that Henry Plummer was the leader of the gang. The vigilantes went to Plummer's house and then drug him out. And then, I don't know why, but I just really like how the guy who played Henry Plummer, they're like, "Red Yeager said you were the one." And he says, "Red Yeager's a liar." I just like that. I like that line for some reason. "Red Yeager's a liar, son of a bitch." Plummer was not given a full-scale trial because they had Red Yeager's confession, so they didn't waste any time. On January 1984, only 7 months after the road agent's reign of terror, Henry Plummer was marched to a scaffold he himself helped build as a sheriff. Before they could hang him, Plummer made an unusual request. He said, "I know I've deceived you boys, and I'm sorry for that, but give me 2 hours and a horse, and I'll bring back my weight in gold." Then the guy hanging him said, "We made that mistake once. We're going to hang you." Then they spanked the horse's ass, and the horse ran out from under him, and he was hung. And it's funny, in the reenactment, when they do like a wide, far-away shot of him hanging, and all you hear in the background in the audio is some girl just going, "Oh!" I just thought it was funny. Just some rant.
So, yeah, they hanged Plummer until he was dead. And I'm pretty sure they wished that he went to hell.
Now, what movie is that from, Mike? Because I know it's
from
some
Young
movie.
Guns 2.
All right. Another one that I haven't seen.
Have you seen the first Young Guns? That's a fun one.
No, I have not. Henry Plummer was hanged before he was able to divulge where the gold was hidden, only leaving obscure hints of where the gold was buried. Immediately after Plummer died, a new kind of gold fever hit. Instead of people looking for gold nuggets, they started looking for Plummer's hidden treasure. In the early 1900s, two mysterious gold hunters found something. Historian Jim Edwards recounts, one day they came into the town of Annis. They went into a local store that had a vault and asked if they could leave this box in there all night. And one man stayed there the whole night riding shotgun on the vault. Then the next day they disappeared. I don't know if it's Plummer's gold, but they had dug up something. M. Scott Jones and Bill Trapp, who are modern day, still trying to hunt for Plummer's treasure, they're saying that it's still out there and that Henry Plummer would not have hid all of his treasure in one spot. They still search for it. Well, maybe not this day, but back in the 90s they were searching for it. I mean, they're probably all dead now. Because as we know, everybody who is on Unsolved Mysteries is now dead, apparently. In 1954, the historical town of Bannock was placed under the protection of Montana's Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. That means anyone without a special permit is barred from digging on the state-controlled land. But since no one knows exactly where Henry Plummer might have hidden his gold, 154 years later, the search goes on. How much gold and other valuable treasures are buried out there? You know, that's what I think about. I mean, just in the United States alone. I mean, that's not even counting the oceans. Like, just like all, like from that time period, you know, like, because we already covered the Lost Dutchman's mine. I believe it was a bonus segment or something, but like that stuff always like fascinates me, you know, like it's just out, it's in the earth, you know, if you could like take some kind of an x-ray gun and just like, you know, see where this gold is at, you know, I bet there's just so much out there still that's just waiting to be stumbled upon, but probably never will.
But it probably never will be because the maps and things like that might have existed for where the gold or the treasure is located doesn't exist anymore. And also you have the whole thing where it might be an area that you can't get to anymore, or it's an area that you're not allowed to dig.
Yeah, that's a big problem is the jurisdictions and the red tape and the permits and all that shit.
Yeah, this was an interesting case. This was a fun treasure case. I remember liking this one too because they did a great job with reenactment, and also it is one of those that is crazy. It's like this sheriff who was a good guy, but then not really. So he was a sheriff, but he was also an outlaw, and he wasn't going undercover either. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to provide some old-timey background music there for you. No, I like this story because of the corruption, you know, how he was sheriff, but he was also doing all this, like, you know, covert illegal stuff. It's almost like a small microcosm of how it is today in you know, government office, how people are doing things, they have these, like, very high positions in politics, and it's just an affront to, or it's just affront to, like, all the illegal shit that they're able to get accomplished as well. all under the guise of being holding this high position in office. So it just goes to show you, money kind of, or the love of money is the root of all evil.
Well, power also.
Yeah, power.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and he definitely had absolute power. He was a sheriff. I mean, a sheriff in that time period had a lot of prestige and a lot of power, and in a lot of ways was essentially kind of the next in line after the mayor. And he was also an outlaw he was a leader of this notorious gang of road agents who killed more than 120 people who were minors and stole all this gold. So I think back then it was easier for people to dispense urban justice, so to speak, on someone like him. But nowadays, he'd probably get away with it. He probably he'd be like Bernie Madoff at best.
I can't get over that guy's last name, Bernie Madoff.
Yeah.
He made off with everyone's money. All right, let's go to our final segment, and that is Noah's Ark. I'm glad we're finally covering this one. This is from the Ultimate Collection.
It's a very famous fable. When I look at this, is just my personal perspective on the Bible. I look at it as a similar tome as Aesop's fables, things like that, where it has these stories and elements about it that are there to try to give some people who don't necessarily have rules about how life is supposed to be, about how you treat other people, and
a moral compass.
A moral compass. It helps them have a moral compass that they might not have inherently. And I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I may not be super big on religion, but I respect it and I appreciate it. And if you believe in God or in the Bible, I have no problem with it. That's more power to you. I don't believe that everything in the Bible is 100% fact, though. And Noah's Ark is definitely one of them. I feel that Noah's Ark is actually based on a much older legend that had been told by different civilizations long before it was written about in the Bible.
Well, I mean, we know factually that's correct. I mean, that's the Noah's Ark, or the Great Flood, I should say, not Noah's Ark. The Great Flood is one of the most common stories in all religions out there. Besides perhaps some kind of a coming of a deity like Christ or something like that. Some people say it was Muhammad. Oh God, I'm getting into dangerous territory where I really don't know much of what I'm talking about, but I do know that the flood is very common in a lot of these old, even in ancient, like Asian religions and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, so yeah, it's the fact that the Bible, it appears to be in the Bible, is just one of the many iterations that kind of fits in conveniently with that particular line of religion, which would be Christianity. The Great Flood, they kind of usurped it into their kind of story, their overall story.
I think there were other stories too in the Bible that were of similar origin as well, and it makes sense. I mean, this is the thing about the time period. There were probably a lot of stories that were shared by a lot of people around the time of Christ. And one of them probably was the ancient Babylonian myth or fable of the Great Flood. So, but it's still interesting. I mean, there was a Indiana Jones tie-in book I remember reading called Indiana Jones and the Genesis Deluge. And it was all about Indiana Jones finding Noah's Ark. And this has always been a segment that I remember because I think I saw it on Lifetime when it had a rerun, and I do remember seeing it elsewhere in other places. And it was one of the few segments that was on YouTube.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to. I made a note of saying too. This is one of the few segments, and I don't know if it's still on there.
I think it is,
that you can go and watch the full segment, and they have this whole little spiel that they have at the beginning saying this is fair use and this is for this for education purposes and all that. And I guess John and Terry just looked the other way for that one. But yeah, that's one of the only ones you can actually find on YouTube. That's a full-fledged segment that you can watch.
So this segment is on the box set, the Strange Legends box set, and it should end up on Amazon. I would think so, but it didn't air until the April 29th, 1992 episode. So it might be season 4 or it might be season 5. But anyway, this deals with Noah's Ark and the search for Noah's Ark, and how there are some people out there that think they found it or found it in the past or saw it in the past. This segment is well done, is really well put together. It has good production values. I like the use of the artwork, the paintings of what Noah's Ark supposedly looked like when some of these people found it. And it is definitely one of the best segments that center around religion or religious artifacts.
Yeah, definitely.
On the show. So it's widely believed that Noah's Ark came to rest on Mount Ararat in western Turkey. And Mount Ararat is a snow-capped and dormant compound volcano in the eastern extremity of Turkey, consisting of 2 major volcanic cones known as the Greater Ararat, the highest peak in Turkey, and the Lesser Ararat, and the Armenian Plateau between 40 kilometers, 25 miles in diameter. It is surrounded by desolate terrain rising above the headwaters of the Tigris River. Mountaineers carry canisters of oxygen with them due to the thin air above, and the mountain is also prone to lightning strikes. The existence of Noah's Ark is one of the greatest mysteries of the Bible. According to the Bible, the great ship which rescued mankind from an incredible deluge rests somewhere in the dangerous and inaccessible snow-frozen caps of the Ararat Mountains. In recent years by this segment's idea of what a recent year is, several expeditions under separate explorers have explored the Ararat Mountains for the Ark. Incredibly, 2 separate teams believe that they may have found the Ark in 2 different locations 17 miles apart. In 1969, a Turkish businessman named George Hagobian claimed the Ark rests on Mount Ararat's northeast side under a permanent 23-square-mile glacier. In 1906, he was a young boy when he thought he saw Noah's Ark, wedged in a melted part of the glacier. He gave a description of the vessel he saw to the archaeological illustrator, Alfred Lee. According to Hagobian, he said it looked like a long box. It was rectangular, and the corners were kind of rounded a little bit. The sides sloped in slightly. The roof was basically flat with a slight pitch to it, and there was a stair-like apparatus at one end. His uncle hoisted him up onto this ladder. He walked up onto the roof, and there, all the way down the middle of the roof, were these holes. And when he stuck his head in, it was dark. And when he shouted, his voice echoed and re-echoed inside, and that it was hollow. A few years later, when he returned to the site, the ice and snow were reclaiming it. 17 years later, in 1986, Lee met Ed Davis, a U.S. Army official stationed in Iran, who in 1943 was with the U.S. Army. Davis also said that he had seen the Ark during flights over the mountain in roughly the same area as George Hagobian's sightings, and his description of it was almost exactly like that of George Hagobian, with one difference. Over the years, the Ark had apparently been broken in 2 by receding and advancing ice. Davis described 3 decks inside with large cages on the bottom deck, smaller cages on the second deck, and on the roof, a venting system with many holes in it. He said that he could see the light and ventilation go clear to the bottom deck. Although Hagobian and Davis weren't able to pinpoint the exact locations, the stories intrigued Don Shockey, an amateur archaeologist, who launched an expedition to Mount Ararat in April of 1989 after studying classified U.S. satellite photos. For 3 days, he and his guides climbed up the mountain's south side, but the Turkish government prevented them from traveling to the north side. Ahmet, a Turkish guide, continued on by himself to an elevation of nearly 16,000 feet. At that height, he spotted something half buried in the snow and took a photograph of the end of a rectangular object with a peaked roof just 300 yards away. Ament thought it was a chicken coop, but Shockey believed that Ament might have glimpsed the remains of Noah's Ark. He took the photograph to forensic anthropologist Dr. Jim Ebert, who declared it to be distinctly man-made. By the time Shockey returned to Ararat in 1990, the site was already covered by snow, and what was there was now completely hidden by the ice. Shockey stopped his search but remained convinced that he might have found the resulting place of Noah's Ark. The resting place of Noah's Ark. The resulting place. Author and Ark researcher David Fasold disagrees with Shockey's conclusions. A former merchant marine officer and merchant salvage expert, he believes the Ark is in another section and in another second location buried 17 miles south of Mount Ararat. During a separate investigation in the late 1980s, he and his team searched the site and discovered numerous iron fittings and pins 20 to 30 inches apart. Scanned by electron microscopes at Los Alamos National Laboratory, they discovered the iron fitting was 94.84% man-made wrought iron, and from above, they formed a distinct pattern of intersecting lines, like the framework of the Ark.
Now, I'd like to interject real quick. Now, to me, that finding would be the more believable one, just for the simple fact that the Ark was 2,000-ish years ago. I mean, it was made from wood. Wood rots, especially when it's covered in snow, which,
well, melts and then cause the wood to further rot.
And I know they say that the snow never melts up there or whatever. Yeah, but it'll occasionally it's not like a freezer where it's just going to perpetually stay that cold. The temperatures fluctuate, the wood would rot over thousands of years. Come on now. It would be a lot more conceivable that if there was a trace of Noah's Ark left, the only trace would be some kind of metallic fittings used in as nails or something like that. So that to me is a lot more believable than a guy seeing the arched, what he said, coop, which was actually like the top of the ship or whatever. I think that was just another structure. Now, with all that being said, I think it would be totally rad if that was Noah's Ark. Like, if you did go and if you were able to find this mythological, it would almost be like finding a dragon carcass or something, it'd be like, wow, like this mythological thing, here it is, and especially the story. I love the story about how the guy hoisted him up and he had the illustration, he climbed the stairs and he looked down into it, and it's like, that is just so cool. It's like something that shouldn't be there, that shouldn't exist, it's so mysterious, and creepy in a way. So I love that side to it. Like, I love that mythological side to the story. Well, I
love that too. It reminded me kind of, of stuff like in Indiana Jones, finding the Ark and the Covenant, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant, I believe that's what it's called.
Yes.
And that's another one that there are some rumors. I'm actually surprised that the show didn't even cover that, the Ark of the Covenant. Because I think I saw in a documentary that it might have aired on the History Channel or Discovery back in the day, and it was on VHS, and it talked about where the Ark might be. And actually, that might be one that we might talk about in another podcast, a non-unsolved mysteries segment, because I do think it's pretty fascinating.
They did do one on the Holy Grail, though, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. But anyway, Noah's Ark, that is really cool. The illustrations really added a lot to that.
It did. It added a great deal, the illustrations that they had.
I don't really know if that's really true, though. I mean, it's one of those things that's like, we don't really have proof other than his word and these paintings and this other guy.
I mean, whether it's, is it truthful? Probably not. But it's a great story.
It could be wishful thinking. Yeah. It's a great story regardless, even though it probably is more than likely wishful thinking. Or just, his own fable, so to speak, of a modern-day Noah's Ark tale. But Fasold, he and his team, They put the boat's length at 515 feet and the width around 85 feet, the same measurements recorded in the Bible. However, other researchers believe that David Fasold found the remains of an ancient Mongol fort, while others insist it's a geological formation. That's a possibility as well. Ore does grow, not really grow. It's not plant. They're not plants. Metal growing in the ground. It does form naturally. And the Mongol fort, I think that's a pretty good theory as well. Definitely, that's a more plausible theory to me. The Turkish government has declared the mound the official site where Noah's Ark rests. And there have been 2 separate investigations around Mount Ararat in the late 1980s, but not much has happened. And I think Mount Ararat, was closed to tourists or something like that recently. So people can't... Because I remember that in the segment, like, they want to go back to Mount Ararat, but they can't because of something.
Yeah,
so,
government restrictions and all that business, that happens.
There's probably still government restrictions. I would think so. If not, I haven't really heard anything extra, though, about people going in and trying to find the Ark. Although there was a businessman who rebuilt the Ark at his Creation Museum.
Yeah, I remember vaguely hearing about that a long time ago. I actually think I was listening to Mark Maron's WTF podcast, and I think he actually went to the Creation Museum and he was kind of mocking the whole thing or whatever.
Well, it's easily mocked. I mean, he spent millions of dollars on this full-size recreation of the Ark. And he massively, overestimated. He massively overestimated the interest and the amount of people that would come and experience this attraction, so to speak. Yeah, some attraction, just some Ark.
Well, I'm sure he saw
not much in it. It's just empty.
I'm sure he saw the Passion of the Christ numbers, when that movie came out. I'm sure he saw the numbers on that and he's like, "Hey, Jesus is selling right now." So
I think that was I think it was afterwards. This is a while after Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, but still though, he saw that religious kind of stuff in mainstream media can do well, and he was probably thinking there would be pilgrimages made by all these churches all across America to see this thing. I'm sure is what he thought.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised that didn't happen. Honestly, given the country that we live in, I'm surprised people didn't go and do that. What is it? Was it a financial failure or something? Or
I believe so. I guess there were people that went to. Ark Encounter hits the iceberg of reality on a maiden voyage. Report noticed a steady decline. For those of you who still haven't seen the jaw-dropping disaster on blogs like The Friendly Atheist and so on with the Ark, this is a Twitter post by at Mr. Atheist Pants. So impressed by the way that they replicated the original Ark chandeliers, AC ducts, and polished hardwood floors. Hashtag, oh, Noah, he didn't.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
Photos of a nearly deserted parking lot and non-existent entry lines, the sheer number of unmanned ticket windows is a pitiful testament to how badly AIG overestimated the popularity of the whole farce. Combined with reports that there were more atheists and pro-science attendees than anyone else, except perhaps staff, it could not have been anything but demoralizing, as much as AIG would doubtlessly try to spin it as a resounding success. What immediately strikes you upon viewing the images that have been posted so far is that, absurd as it all is, this is a construction that spent the hell out of the nearly $100 million that was poured into it. Elaborate displays, rows and rows of animal cages with speakers placed within, providing atmospheric honks and squawks, intricately carved wooden signs inventing elaborate explanations for how waste product disposal and feeding were supposedly handled, and dinosaurs. Yep, it's got them. It's got dinosaurs. What does it have? Dragons and mermaids? Like that, and unicorns? Like that, Robot Chicken sketch? All this money and all this effort spent on a monument to propagating ignorance and myth, all to defend the delusions of a sad man, lots of them really, terrified that science is telling him he has no heaven to go to when he dies. Imagine living in so much of fear of knowledge that you dedicate your life to morality to a massive scale. After all these years, I still shake my head at it all. This is from a blog called freethoughtblogs.com. This is not from my opinion about religion.
Yeah, I mean,
But, yeah.
you know, obviously they had an agenda, you know, to kind of like, you know, tear this guy a new asshole because they're all like atheists and they want to see this fail, and you know, whatever. That's their prerogative if that's what they want to do. But I mean, yeah, I mean, as a little ridiculous. I view it a little more in the vein of like this guy probably saw an opportunity to make a lot of money, and that was kind of like his motives. Because I mean, to go to that scale, like I said, he probably thought that there were going to be like, you know, pilgrimages of all these churches and stuff coming out to see this thing, and it was going to just be rolling in dough. And then when I guess that didn't happen, you know, they took a bath on the whole thing. So
This is actually pretty recent. This is like 2016.
Wow. That was long.
And there's all these different reviews. Some people are like amazing. Other people are like, this is supposed to be a floating replica of Noah's boat. Instead, it's a modern building with a boat facade on one side, nowhere near water, and the authorities deemed it unsuitable for animal habitation. So there are no animals on board. It is a windowless wooden building with a gift shop. We left very uninspired.
Yeah, the gift shop just put it over the top for me. I'm now officially like, fuck this guy and his venture capitalism. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but whatever.
Well, I mean, also the Ark Encounter, the Creation Museum itself, I mean, is a whole nother crazy case. It's crazy. After independent feasibility studies projected the park would provide a boon to the state's tourism industry in Kentucky, the Ark Encounter received tax incentives from the city, county, and state to induce its construction. This drew criticism from groups concerned with the separation of church and state, rightfully so. A dispute over AIG's hiring practices was adjudicated in the U.S. federal court, which found in 2016 that the organization could require Ark Encounter employees to sign a statement of faith as a condition of their employment, prompting criticism of the park's discriminatory hiring practices.
What, so you had to be a Christian essentially to work there?
Yep.
Wow, that's some bullshit.
The visitor experience. On arrival, visitors ride a shuttle from a 4,000 space parking lot along a 1-mile path to the Ark. Photo opportunities are provided as visitors approach the Ark from its port side. Contrary to the intuition of many, the end with the fin is considered the bow, and what may resemble a modern bulbous bow is actually the stern of the structure. The Ark contains 132 bays, each standing about 18 feet high, arranged into 3 decks. Visitors enter on the lowest deck and move between decks on the ramps constructed through the center of the Ark. Bays on the first deck contain models of some animals that AIG believes were on the Ark. There are no live animals within the Ark. The models are meant to represent kinds of animals, which AIG maintains to give rise to modern animals through an assumed process of rapid speciation following the flood, which is a bunch of bullshit. Dinosaurs are among the models presented. Really. The second deck contains dinosaurs do not exist alongside modern man. The second deck contains more animal models along with dioramas of Noah's workshop and blacksmith. So what are you telling me? Are you telling me that dinosaurs were fucking... You tell me dinosaurs were alive during the era of Christ or Noah and all of that? Was Noah a Neanderthal? But wait a minute, dinosaurs weren't around when Neanderthals were alive either. The second deck contains more animal models along with dioramas of Noah's workshop and blacksmith. Bays on the third deck contain displays presenting AIG's theories about what may have happened inside and outside the Ark during the flood. Displays in 3 of the bays display artifacts from the Green Collection and promote the Museum of the Bible, a Washington, D.C. attraction currently being constructed by the Green family, who donated to the Ark Encounter's construction. Oh, advertising. Great. The Ark is held 15 feet off the ground by a series of concrete towers. The starboard side of the hull merges into 3 80-foot masonry towers containing stairwells, elevators, and restrooms. A gift shop is positioned below the Ark, while a restaurant called Esmara's Kitchen, an allusion to the traditional Jewish name for Noah's wife, is located behind the ark.
Oh my god, that's so corny.
The Ararat Ridge Zoo, a free petting zoo, is also part of the attraction.
Okay, now to even all the Christians out there and people of faith, how does this not strike you as exploitive in any way? You know, I mean, maybe some people are like, oh my god, man, they're talking about religion and they're hammering down on this thing. But how is that not exploitive? You know what I mean? Like, how is that not taking something that's supposed to be, you know, holy to you and sacred and just exploiting it for monetary gain? How is that not like that? And
it totally is.
And you know that like, restaurant ain't cheap. You know they're charging like $4 for a Coke.
It's like if they made like an attraction over like the cross that Jesus was crucified on, or an attraction for the Holy Grail. Yeah, it's just so. It is. It's exploitation at its finest.
Jesus in 3D.
Soon after the opening of the Ark Encounter, various atheist web pet sites alleged that the attendance levels at the attraction were below expected levels. In mid-September, it was reported that about 300,000 people visited the attraction in its first 9 weeks, with about 95% of them coming from outside the vicinity, exceeding projections. By late October, over 400,000 people visited the attraction, continuing to exceed projections. This is in contrast to a state study that projected the attraction to receive 325,000 to under 500,000 visitors in the first year. Now, I don't know. This is Wikipedia, so things could be edited. It easily could have been one of those things. Well, no, it's not underperforming. It's doing really well.
All right, so I myself am running low on time here.
So I could be completely wrong, but I honestly think that ultimately it'll flop, considering it costs $100 million to make.
Yeah, that's nuts. So, like I promised in the Facebook group there, Uncovering Unsolved... Oh, shit. Oops. I almost said
what?
Whoa. Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries group. We're going to answer the last of your questions here, starting last week. We're just going to do these real quick. Ariel Smith asks, what are your top 5 segments of all time? Just right off the top of my head, Allagash Abductions, Missing Time, Bad Chief, the one with Greg Webb, the murderous cop. Strange Legends, Mothman, and I like Brandon Lee. I like that segment a lot. I'm just gonna go with that for right now.
There's too many for me to do 5, and especially not off the top of my head. I mean, Allagash is definitely one of them. I like the Mothman segment, and a few of the other bizarre murders and stuff like that, and a lot of the unexplained stuff. Some of the ghost ones, the Tallman haunting. But yeah, there's just so many that it's really hard for me to just pick 5.
All right, next question we got from Morgan Chow Gebhardt, who asks, which case would you really, 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 really want to see solved?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing that's really coming up to the top of my head right at the moment. Yeah, I can't think of anything right now. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Next question is from Mario Rios. What are the worst featured mystery ever for you two? Featured mystery?
Featured mystery.
What are the worst featured mystery ever?
If we're talking about featured segments, there's definitely stuff like Aphrodisiacs, some of the Miracle segments.
We did a whole episode about some of our least favorite Unsolved Mysteries segments, and those are really, I guess, the ones that we already talked about and that we stand by.
Storm in Hell.
Yes.
We just did one recently on the Gold Flake Lady, who's a flake.
Yeah, if you want to go back and check that out, that's a whole episode back in December we did of the some of our most hated, well, not hated, but some of the worst segments on Unsolved Mysteries. Mike Brill asks, did you guys ever get into the Unsolved Mysteries discussions on the Sitcoms online forums? I did.
I didn't.
I did.
But he did.
I jumped in there and I bitched about what happened with the podcast, with me having to rebrand it and John and Terry and the cease and desist. And they basically called, one of the guys called me a liar and said I was a bitch, which that's message boards for you. Some more people were more believing of me. And then Sitcoms Online just locked me out of my account and I wasn't able to log in. Every time I changed my password, they said it was an incorrect password, so I changed it again successfully and they said it was incorrect. So I just said, fuck it. I don't give a fuck about this stupid site anymore. If people don't want to listen to our podcast from that site, this is the only reason I went on there was to promote the podcast and kind of explain what happened to me or whatever. So I just said, fuck it. So
I check it out, but I'm not a part of the forum. Because you don't have to be signed into the forum to look at the post. So I still keep checking the posts every now and then because it is a good resource, especially for when they do a segment, do episode guides for the streaming seasons. Although the guy who's been on there, Hot Jock, is slacking. He keeps saying, "Oh, I'm gonna have the season 3 guide up. I'm gonna have it up," and then hasn't had it up, and then he's making excuses. Well, I'm busy, and you just make your own, type thing. And I'm like, you said you were gonna make it, so do it.
Here comes
hell.
Here comes a douche with the motor on his bicycle.
Maybe it's Hot Jock.
God.
That's a good nickname for that guy, Hot Jock.
Yeah, that guy's new name is Hot Jock, who rides his fucking bicycle with the motor on it up and down the road. That's Hot Jock. Just cruising on, not a care in the world. Mike's last question is favorite true crime podcast. Me and Mike don't listen to true crime podcasts. And that was the answer to that one.
I tried listening to one of them, and I couldn't do it. And I know it's the one that says they're the unofficial Unsolved Mysteries podcast, the trail that went cold, but to me, it's a very cold podcast. It doesn't really warm me up. It's very bland to me. It's extremely scripted. You can tell, and I just prefer the more loose style of a podcast where you're not making sure that every single thing that you say is scripted, and you're not trying to do your best Robert Stack impression. I mean, honestly, be yourself.
Oh, is that what the guy was trying to do? He's trying to
not really, but it just felt like he was trying to be as professional as humanly possible, which came across as fake to me. That happens a lot with podcasts and a lot in other videos on YouTube. It's just they have this scripted thing. It sounds like they've rehearsed it many times, so they have this very definite sing-songy sort of line delivery.
Yeah, but I mean, I may not listen to true crime podcasts. Mike may not listen to true crime podcasts.
But if you do, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, but we support them.
Totally.
I support Generation Y and Last Podcast on the Left and Vanished and Up and Vanished.
We don't want to be like, oh, we don't support them at all. I mean, I may not really care to listen to them, but it's just...
Let me see here. There's a guy named Joe Ross who he actually did a pretty cool thing on Reddit. He put together a list of all the true crime podcasts on Reddit, and he was kind enough to put our podcast in there. And he does a show called True Crime Review Podcast, and that's actually, I'd like to have him on the podcast. So if you guys listen to True Crime Review, let us know, and it might be a treat to have him on here in the future. And there's some other people. The bigger podcasts are kind of hard because I guess they're busier, or for whatever reason they're harder to kind of, whatever. And another little tidbit I guess I'll drop on you guys. I don't even think Mike knows this, but I'm gay. No, I'm just joking. I emailed CrimeCon. I think that's coming up in June. I emailed them and I told them that we'd be interested in participating amongst the other podcasters on Podcast Row. Haven't received an email back yet, but if they're willing to pay for our airfare at least, then me and Mike have both kind of said we would do it. We both kind of had a conversation about it, and if they're willing to pay for the airfare, hey, we'll show up. So waiting to get an email back from them, but I did email CrimeCon, so we might show up there. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's all the time I have. I got to go run and do my karaoke gig over in Orange Park, which means nothing to any of you who don't live in Jacksonville. But anyway, as for me and Mike, that is the end of the podcast. Everybody have a good night.
See ya.
Here are some more outtakes so you can laugh at Josh's many misfortunes.
Can you imagine opening the podcast with that?
All right. Okay, now I'm too loud. Okay, checkity check. Fuck, fuckity fuck. Fuck. Cunt. Shit. I gotta make sure my swears are in tune.
The C word.
I don't see the big deal about that word.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could kind of get it, but it makes the one I don't get is moist. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
I don't know why some women are so triggered by moist.
I feel like that's become more of a meme than anything else, and just, like anything else, people just jump on board with it and go, oh man, don't even say that word around me. It's like, bitch, you didn't have a problem with it like 2 years ago. You only had a problem with it when everyone else started having a problem with it, you fucking follower.
Cheap. Like the stupid whitewashing controversy with the Ghost in the Shell movie. I saw it. It was great. I loved it.
That was so
the IMAX.
Yeah, that was so weird. Seeing a positive review about a movie from you, a new movie especially, because it seems.
Well, I did a lot of one. I did Logan. I did one for John Wick Chapter 2, Kong Skull Island. I mean, every film that I've seen in the theater this year, I've liked.
So 2017 it's been a strong year for movies then, eh?
Well, so far, I mean, other than the movies that I thought were going to suck, have sucked. Power Rangers sucked. But, pretty sure some other movies I think are going to suck too. I haven't really seen a film that's been really that disappointing to me. I actually thought the live action film was better than the anime. And when I do my reviews, I'm going to say it. And I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for it. I don't really care. The anime is nowhere near as flawless as so many of these fans make it out to be. They keep talking about how deep it is and how complex the themes are. And I watched the film and I've seen it twice, the anime, and I'm like, what themes? Oh, the psychobabble straight out of a psychology textbook? That I've heard a million fucking times.
I've never actually seen any of that stuff. I just think it has a really cool name. Like, that's a really cool title for a show.
Yeah, and I mean, that it does. See, Ghost in the Shell, the anime, has a good idea. There are some I will say it has an edge over the live action film because it is more of a harder violence. It has harder edge to it. There's the violence, actually, there's blood and stuff like that. So the hyper violence aspect is definitely in the film's favor. But it has a really terrible climax. And it's really slowly paced. The movie feels like exposition, the motion picture. And I love how the people who are fans of the anime are criticizing the film and saying, well, it's just exposition dialogue. Not as much as the anime. And, yeah, there is a little bit too much of it, but the anime has, mostly that's all it is. There's no character development. So I really don't get the overwhelming praise for the 1995 anime. To me, it's average. It's beautiful visually. I like the idea. The score is good. The directing is fine. But I don't understand the, oh my God, it's, it feels like those type of, people go to film school and they see, a film like Ghost in the Shell and it blew my mind, man. Those kind of people, where it's like, it's not really that great. I think it's extremely overrated, to be perfectly honest. Now, the other film, I haven't watched the anime TV series, the tie-in to its standalone complex, but I downloaded it, and it actually looks like fun.
Are you a fan of anime?
See, that's the thing. I'm not super big on anime, to be perfectly honest. I didn't grow up with anime. I've only seen a few of them. Akira is probably the one that I probably like the most off the top of my head. But Ghost in the Shell I can watch as a time waster, but I absolutely like the live action film more.
My
And I
friend,
think that
my friend Abigail's a huge fan of anime. She loves Naruto and Bleach.
yeah.
And I forget whatever else. The only anime that I ever got into is, of course, like the typical like male American thing that all male 20-somethings like, and of course
Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
I never really got into that. I've seen a few episodes on Toonami, and it just didn't really grab me.
Well, I remember back in the day, Cartoon
And
Network.
Pokemon. I watched Pokemon.
Is that considered anime?
Yeah, technically, yes.
Yeah, I liked Pokemon. I like back in the day, Cartoon Network only ordered a few like episodes of Dragon Ball Z. So they would get to a certain point in the show, and then they just loop it back from the beginning. So like Goku would become like a Super Saiyan, and he defeated Nappa and Vegeta. And then Frieza came into the picture, and then they just looped it all the way back to the beginning of the show. And I was like, and as a kid, you know, I just thought, well, I guess that's all there is of this strange show that I've never heard of. Not realizing that it's been around since like the fucking 80s or even previously. Like,
well, it's like Power Rangers. Power Rangers, the stock footage they use is from a show called Super Sentai.
Yeah.
So
which I recently learned that as well, or maybe it was something I knew but I forgot. I also liked, which I think it only came out in the 90s, and I think it is, I think it wasn't really anime because it was done over here, but it was Eon Flux on MTV. Remember that?
Yeah, I've seen episodes of that on Liquid Television because
Yeah.
it premiered on Liquid Television MTV. That is a really strange, surreal show, but it's definitely better than the movie.
All right, so
a lot of people are going out, you know, goes to the show, blah blah blah, and they changed the story. Yeah, they actually had a story. The anime didn't have a story. I've seen the film twice now, and people are saying you're missing something. What the hell am I missing? Philosophy fucking quotes. It came out of Socrates' ass.
I don't know. I have no. My world is so small of things that I can invest time and energy into. So I don't know about any of that stuff. So what's the order here that we want to do for this week?
What do you want to do? How do you want to do it?
I like the diversity of this episode. We got a treasure, we got a murder, and we got a fantasy, a fable,
legend, a fable. You're not even call it a strange legend. You're just like it's just a fantasy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Fantasy.
We'll get into what I feel about it, but okay. So I'm thinking. Oh, we also got to do the AMA thing. I'll go ahead and pull that article up now.
Do you want to do that as like a record it and then do it as a bonus, or do you want to put it actually in this episode?
I want to put it in this episode.
Because Plummer's Booty is pretty short. I mean, that was like an 8-minute long segment.
Okay, so we're both going to be reading from the Mental Floss, 12 Things We Learned About Unsolved Mysteries.
Can you send me that link again? Because I thought I bookmarked it, but apparently I didn't.
All right.
Noah's Ark, I'm just looking off of the Wikia. And I've seen that segment numerous times.
I just watched the segment before I got on here, so. Okay, let me think.
Booty, I had to like refresh my memory, and I was like, "Oh, it's that one." Okay, now I know it. That one. That's the one about the outlaw sheriff guy in the Wild West who found this treasure, but then he became an outlaw. When didn't he get like killed? He got hanged.
Yeah.
Until he was dead. That's a Young Guns 2 reference.
Oh. No. When you're going to learn, your references are always going to get lost on me, Mike.
Well, I mean, Young Guns 2, though, I still might mention it because people in the audience might remember it because it's a very fun quote. Because in the film, this judge is talking about he's caught Billy the Kid, and he's like, "You will be hanged until you are dead, dead, dead." And then Billy is like, "Well, you can go to hell, hell, hell."
That is pretty funny. Okay, I don't know. Let's just do let's start off with what people typically like, which is the murder shit. So we'll start off with Rizzo. We'll go to Treasure because that's got some murdery stuff in it.
Yeah,
and then
and Noah's Ark.
finish
All right.
finish on the fancy pants fairy tale thing.
So let's start out with AMA first, and then go into. Are we doing another Q&A in this one, or
no? Well, oh shit! I did say that I would. Yeah, fuck. I guess at the end we'll do a quick because I told the people last week that their questions would be answered on the next one. So yeah, I should pull that.
I
up.
thought I'd mention that, So
I forgot about that, but yeah, good because
people would be like, "You forgot about everything. You forgot to be in the AMA. You forgot to do."
Yeah, it's almost as if you guys aren't professionals and you're just doing this for fun, and you're not really getting paid to do it.
I don't think they would have answered your question. Anyway.
No, I don't think so either. But my point is like yeah, we're not fucking professionals. What is there anything about this podcast that has ever come off as professional in any way, shape, or form? Didn't think so. So what do you expect, man? Like I make time to do it because I like doing it. But as far as if we start getting like sponsors and
then totally.
then we'll kick it up. I'll kick up the responsibility a notch. But as of right now, it's just kind of like you get what you get. Let me see here. Okay, so I said Ariel Smith and down. We would answer.
That sounds like something that Leonard Rizzo would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy was so greasy. Okay, so I guess
you made me physically uncomfortable watching. Especially I was watching on my computer, so it was like I was looking straight at him.
Q&A. All right, yeah, we'll have to try to breeze through this here. Cause
there were some other questions, I think.
I got them pulled up.
I'm trying to find them again on the Facebook page.
I found it. There's really, I don't know if there's I can't send you the exact spot on the...
What you can is probably copy and paste the questions or something, put it on the thing, or...
Let me try doing that.
Red
Yeager's a liar! I love
Jared Yeager is a liar? What? Okay, I got Jared Yeager has like some... I found the spot now. I got it.
Oh my.
Jeez.
Gassiness. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to get ready for another.
We got Ariel.
Yeah, Ariel Smith and down.
Morgan. Mario. Mike.
I get Mario, Mike, and Eddie. I get them all confused, like as the same person for some reason.
Mario is a longtime friend of mine, longtime subscriber. So, yeah, I pretty much know him pretty well.
All right, let's get into this.
All right,
what is it, episode 41 here. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I've been recording because people seem to like outtakes, so and I'm sure there'll be a lot more on this podcast.
I'll get the burps.
No, I actually didn't get the. Well, I got the last one, but I didn't get the real big one, unfortunately. All right, here we go. And then it goes back to the reenactment again in the show. The phone rings. This is and the caller goes, "Is this the San Antonio police?" Which is kind of dumb because it's like you dialed the number, dumbass.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I reported that Monika Rizzo had been murdered a few weeks ago. You need to go back and search their house again. Leonard Rizzo killed his wife. The bones were in the backyard. They're under a pile of touches by the... What the fuck? Edit number one. Edit number one. It's gonna be fun with edit number one. 5231.
Ding ding.
Stupid fucking notes. 5231. Hey. All right. So what did I mean to say here? Backyard. They're under a pile of tires, not touches. What the fuck? Why did I write touches? Tush. Wait, is it hush? Hush. Na 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 na.
I was just thinking about the song by Daft Punk that they had.
Oh yeah.
The guy.
I remember touch.
From touch.
Memories from
He's
touch.
from touch.
Tell me what you mean. That guy was so operatic in his singing of that song.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
Paul Williams. He was. Have you seen a film that he was in called Phantom of the Paradise?
Now, Mike, why are you asking me questions like that? What do you think the answer
Well,
is?
it's a musical. I thought you might have seen that.
You calling me queer boy?
No,
I'm just
not at all.
No, I haven't seen it.
Because I know you like music. So
I do, and I just don't like musicals. They're a little.
This will be up your alley. This is more like Rocky Horror Picture Show and stuff like that.
Hey, I decide what goes up my alley, and that's in the privacy of my own home. Thank you very much.
But I do recommend it if you like Paul Williams. If you liked his music, there he sings a good amount of songs in it, and he plays a record producer for this a record company called Death Records. What this is, it's directed by Brian De Palma. And it's a version of Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, let's do a take two. All right. And let me just do a quick break here because I'm actually going to grab my guitar and do a little slide guitar thing for the intro for the music. So it's 107:31. It's not going to be long, and it's not going to sound good either. So just hold on. Jaeger's that one that spilled the beans, but of course when a man's facing a noose, he has second thoughts about a lot of things. According to one account, he said, "Looks like you're gonna hang me, boys, but if you do, I know a lot of others that deserve it just as much as I do." And that was the first firm indication that Henry Plummer was the leader of the gang. The vigilantes went to the Plummer's house. Let me take a take two on that one, because I read that sentence all fucky. Hour 14:42. Let me try that again. Jaeger's the one that spilled the beans, but of course, when a man's facing a noose, he has second thoughts about a lot of things. According to one account, he said, "Looks like you're gonna hang me, boys, but if you do, I know a lot of others that deserve it just as much as I do." Well, fuck, hold on a second. Henry Plummer. What he. Alright, let's do a take three on that. Yeah, I love the corruption. I love that he was the sheriff, but he was also like, you know, it's essentially a small, just like what do you call the it's
He was playing.
Okay,
both sides.
I got the word. And again, here's another edit. 120, 128. I hear you clapping and humor over there.
Because I feel that Noah's Ark. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I feel that Noah's Ark
124:44.